Oh, what a freak!
Been alive.
Disgusting freak! Misogynistic Auri right here. Thank you. Yes, that's me. Size doesn't matter, but I guess it does in nature actually. Do you think someone was ever trying to eat that? Or is it butt plug? Oh my god. Hello everybody, I'm Auri and I'm back with more reaction content, and I couldn't wait to react to this one because today we are watching Spinosnack channel and we are watching a video called The Deeper You Go, the Creepier Prehistoric Ocean Gets. That's right, we are watching more dinos, something I do like. I'm not super obsessed with it, but I do like dinos, definitely. Who doesn't? Who doesn't like dinosaurs? But we are going to move a little bit one of my fears, which is deep ocean. Let's see how it goes.
Prehistoric Ocean wasn't just dangerous. It was a liquid horror show where nightmare creatures with giant eyes stalked through eternal darkness. And some of these monsters are still alive today, lurking in places we've never explored. Look, we think the ocean today is scary, which, fair enough, it's got great whites and giant squids.
He showed like a pixelated versions of the creatures that live underwater. One of them looked very suspicious. Deep ocean is my nightmare. I mean, I do love swimming. I love rivers, lakes. Lakes actually not so much, but I love rivers, I love oceans, I love seas. I do love swimming, but I need to see what's under me. Like, as long as I see the bottom, I'm good. But if I lose the side of the bottom floor, it's over. I'm panicking. This is it. This is it. I can imagine something huge coming and eating me. I'm staying away from a deep waters. I can't. I'm scared of very deep waters. I have no problem with short water. Deep water,
Squids and whatever else is down there that we haven't found yet. But prehistoric oceans, those were on a whole different level of nope. Picture this, you're in water so deep that sunlight gave up trying to reach you about half a mile ago. The pressure would crush you instantly.
Is that ocean gate? Oh no.
Just above freezing. And in this pitch black, bone-crushing void, things were living. And not just living, they were thriving. Getting weird, getting big, and getting really, really good at killing stuff. See, back then, the deep ocean was where evolution went completely off the rails. No sunlight meant no plants, so everything down there had to get creative
what the
about
hell
dinner.
is that?
Some grew massive eyes to catch the tiny...
Dude, that looked like a predator mouth. A little predator. Ew, nasty. I just hate submarines. You wouldn't be able to pay me enough money to get to the freaking submarine. I don't know, you would need to like hit me with a pen in the head and then maybe pull me in a submarine. I wouldn't walk into the submarine with my own freaking will. Never.
Tiniest hint of light. Others just said screw it and went blind altogether. A few decided to even make their own light and wave it around like some kind of underwater serial killer with a flashlight. And the really messed up part, these weren't just random monsters that showed up for a few million years and then died out. In fact, they were already ancient when dinosaurs were still figuring out how to walk upright. And here's what really gets me. We only know about the ones that left fossils. Most deep sea creatures just dissolve when they die. Their shells get eaten by acid and they vanish without a trace. So for every horrifying prehistoric sea monster that we've found, there's probably a dozen worse ones that we'll never even know existed. Like, imagine there are 12 creatures out there even more terrifying than the Megalodon. Deep Ocean back then was essentially a horror movie that ran for 500 million years, starring creatures that would make H.P. Lovecraft throw up, giant eyes staring through eternal darkness, teeth that don't fit in mouths, things that haven't changed their murder strategy since before your great times a million grandmother was even a twinkle in some primordial soup. Meet the Ophthalmosaurus. This thing lived 150 million years ago and had eyes the size of dinner plates. Not small dinner plates either. We're talking full-sized, fancy restaurant dinner plates. Each eyeball was 9 inches across, which is bigger than most basketballs. Now, you might be thinking,
alright, but this guy is kind of cute actually. I wouldn't mind seeing this thing. I mean, it would probably eat me, you know, knowing what's going on in the sea at that time. But it's a cute one. Like, it's one of the cute ones. If you compare this to the Goblin shark, that just looks like a big dolphin combined with like a goldfish or something. It's kind of cute. Even if it's big, it's kind of cute.
Big eyes. So what? Well, those massive eyes weren't just for looking pretty. They were for seeing in complete darkness while diving deeper than most nuclear submarines go today. This reptile can hold its breath for over 20 minutes and dive over 3,000 feet down into water
its breath? So
dark
it's a mammal?
you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Why would anything want to do that though? Well, simple. Dinner was down there. The weirdest part is how good it was at this job. While other marine reptiles were splashing around in shallow water eating fish, Ophthalmosaurus was down there in the void, using those massive eyes to spot the faintest glimmer of bioluminescence. Picture something bigger than a dolphin, but built like a torpedo, with eyes so big they had to be reinforced with rings of bone just so they wouldn't collapse under the pressure. And it wasn't even the only one doing this. We found these things all over Europe. So apparently diving into the abyss to hunt tentacled monsters was a popular career choice back then, which tells you something about how messed up the Jurassic oceans really were. But what if you didn't even need massive eyes to be a nightmare? Phosphorus was only 12 feet long. In the world of prehistoric sea monsters, that's basically a minnow. But here's the thing about this particular minnow. It had forward-facing eyes. You know what else has forward-facing eyes? Owls.
Horses?
Hawks.
Oh, never mind.
Things that hunt and kill other
Horses
things
don't.
for a living. Most reptiles have eyes on the sides of their heads because they spend their time trying not to get eaten. Phosphorosaurus, this guy had both eyes pointing straight ahead, giving it depth perception that would make a sniper jealous. And those eyes were huge. Not Ophthalmosaurus huge, but big enough that they probably took up half its skull. So I just think this little monster was nocturnal. While all the big scary mosasaurs were sleeping off their day of terrorizing everything in sight, Phosphorosaurus was just getting started. It would cruise through the dark waters, using those precision-guided eyes to pick off glowing lanternfish and squid that thought they were safe in the night. The really twisted part is how—
Okay, well, so far they're cute. So far I have nothing against them. Both of those were cute. I'm waiting until we get to like super messed up ones. I really hate— oh my god, when they showed like those tentacles coming and grabbing that first reptile he was showing us. Oh no.
How good it was at this job. We're talking about a reptile that figured out how to be an underwater owl 70 million years before actual owls even existed. It wasn't fast enough to chase down big prey in broad daylight, so it just waited until dark and became the ocean's first serial killer. And get this, it lived in Japan. So while T-Rex was stomping around on land, the waters off prehistoric Japan were being stalked by this small, precise killer with giant forward-facing eyes, just cruising through the darkness, picking off anything dumb enough to light itself up. Talk about evolutionary specialization. Most mosasaurs were built like buses. This one was built like a scalpel. And of course, some deep sea killers took a more direct approach. Viperfish have teeth so long they stick out of their mouth even when it's closed. These aren't normal teeth. These are straight up fangs that curve back toward the eyes because there's literally nowhere else for them to go. This fish has been perfecting its nightmare look for 15 million years, and honestly, it nailed it on the first try. The teeth are so big that if a human had proportional fangs, they would be dragging on the ground when you walked. But here's where it gets really messed up. Viperfish use these teeth by ramming into their prey at full speed. You'd think hitting something tooth first would mess up your skull pretty bad. Well, Viperfish thought of that too. They evolved a built-in crumple zone. The first bone behind their head is basically a shock absorber that keeps their brain from turning into soup every time they spear something. So this fish just hangs out in the dark, completely motionless, waiting for something to swim by.
Then it rams.
And it fires itself forward and impales whatever was unlucky enough to be in the neighborhood. There's no chase scene, there's no fancy hunting strategy, just
like
pure, brutal, lethal efficiency. And the best part, they do this while glowing. Viperfish have lights all along their belly to camouflage themselves from below, and a little fish lure on their back to attract prey from above. So they're basically a floating death trap with a neon sign that says free food here. And they're still doing this today. Right now, somewhere in the deep ocean, a viperfish is hanging perfectly still with its mouth full of fangs,
they still exist?
waiting for dinner to come close enough to murder. They've been at it for millions of years, and they're not going to be stopping anytime soon. And they are really scary, but they're not that big compared to the goblin shark, which is also still around today.
Look at that! Freaking abomination of nature. Not only ugly, but even more ugly and even more ugly. Like this is just hideous. hideous. Imagine freaking swimming in an ocean, you enjoying, I don't know, you're watching coral reefs or something, and then you see something like that swimming next to you with a huge ass nose and weird teeth that probably should have a braces on. That's just big nope. That's just a big freaking nope. Not even submarine would protect me from that. If I would see it outside of the submarine... Do submarine have windows? Because I was about to say, like, if I would see it outside of the submarine, but then I realized that I don't think submarines have windows. I think I'm good in a submarine, actually. If I need to choose to be, swimming, like, in the middle of ocean or be in a submarine, I would actually choose a submarine. Because I don't have to see anything and I'm, you know, fairly safe, let's say.
The goblin shark looks like someone tried to design a shark, but had only ever had a description from someone who'd never seen one. Pink skin, flabby body, and snout that looks like it belongs on a different animal entirely. But that's not even the scary part. The scary part is what happens when it opens its mouth.
It looks like an uncle.
Shark can shoot its entire jaw forward about a foot outside its head.
Dude, that's just me.
There's a second mouth where no mouth should be, full of long needle teeth grabbing whatever was unlucky enough to be nearby. This thing has been doing this
That's what I do during dinners
for 125 million years. We know this because we keep finding fossil goblin sharks that look exactly the same as the ones swimming around today. While everything else was evolving and changing and trying new things, the goblin shark was just sitting there going, nah, I'm good. This is working fine for me. And why would it change? It lives so deep that nothing bothers it. It just floats around in the dark, waiting for something to swim close enough to its face. Then it fires that jaw out and drags dinner back into its mouth.
Look at that.
No chasing, no fighting, just pure mechanical efficiency. The weirdest part is that we barely ever see them. They live so deep and are so rare that most people who study sharks for a living have never even seen a living one.
Yeah, well, thank God they should stay in there, because this thing was definitely made by a devil, okay? This looks like it's a devil's fish. I'm pretty sure devil himself have this thing in the aquarium in his room. Because what even is that and who made it?
Down there right now, drifting through the darkness with their extendable nightmare mouths.
Oh, God.
The exact same thing they've been doing since before grass existed. And speaking of sharks, there's another nightmare shark still living today.
Oh, that's better.
Some sharks look normal until you get up close. Then you realize this thing has 300 teeth arranged in 25 rows, and every single one of them is shaped like a tiny trident. And when I say tiny, I mean each tooth is still big enough to do some serious damage. This shark is basically a 6-foot-long swimming mouth that's been practicing the same routine for 80 million years. It moves through the water like an eel, all wavy and smooth, until something gets too close. Then it strikes forward and swallows prey that's half its own size.
It looks like...
No chewing, no tearing it apart, just straight down the hatch.
It looks like a fossil, like a live fossil.
Frilled sharks live in caves and crevices during the day, then come out at night to hunt. They're almost never seen at the surface, so for most of human history, we had no idea they existed. We just kept finding their teeth in ancient rock and assuming they were extinct. Then, in the 1800s, some unlucky fishermen pulled one up and everyone realized these things never left. They've been down there this whole time.
Oh God, look at that! It's half dead!
Whole, while the rest of the world moved on without them. And here's what really gets me. They're still doing it. Right now, somewhere in the deep Atlantic, a frilled shark is probably coiled up in some dark crevice, waiting for night so it can go hunt with the same 300-tooth mouth design that worked perfectly fine when dinosaurs were still walking around. This creature was so good at its job that evolution looked at this 80 million years ago and said, yeah, that's terrifying enough, and just
it's barely dragging its tail.
But some deep sea monsters found even stranger solutions in evolution. Female anglerfish carry around their own personal fishing rod with a glowing lure on the end. They sit perfectly still in total darkness.
Only the ladies? I thought that all fishes like this, no matter if it's a male fishy or a woman fishy, they have the tingies. If it's a female anglerfish that only carries the light, how do males survive? How do they get the thing? Do they just have smaller rods? You know, people are saying that size doesn't matter, but I guess it does in nature actually.
Waving this little light around until something swims over to investigate. Then they open their mouth and swallow whatever was dumb enough to fall for the oldest trick in the book. That's not the weird part though. The weird part is what happens when a male anglerfish finds a female. He bites onto her and then never lets go. Ever. In fact, his mouth fuses to her skin, his blood vessels connect to hers, and he basically becomes a permanent sperm-producing tumor on the side of her.
My god, what a lazy man! Look at him, he's not a gentleman. He just sucked himself into a woman and he's just living off of it. Oh, come on, go to work or something. She not only have to raise the children, but she's working for all the family, every single family member. Misogynistic Auri right here, thank you. Yes, that's me.
Her body. This has been going on for 50 million years, by the way.
Oh my god, what an
These
ugly
things
woman.
are ancient. That was 50 million years of males biting onto females and becoming living, breathing, reproductive organs. The females are totally fine with this arrangement because finding a mate in the endless black void of the deep ocean is basically impossible otherwise, just like my dating life. The male doesn't even have a functioning digestive system once he attaches. He just hangs there, getting all his nutrients from the female's bloodstream, waiting for her to need his services. Some females have multiple males attached at once, which means they're swimming around with several zombie boyfriends grafted to their bodies. Evolution looked at the problem of finding mates in infinite darkness and said, you know what, let's just make all the males into parasites. It worked so well that there are now dozens of different anglerfish species.
Aren't all men
parasites? Same horrifying thing. The female does all the hunting, all the surviving, all the work, while carrying around what are essentially biological sperm banks that used to be an independent fish. It's the most one-sided relationship in the animal kingdom, and for some reason, both parties seem completely happy with it. But anglerfish weren't the first to thrive in impossible places. To find that creature, we need to go back to the beginning. 430 million years ago, the ocean floor was splitting open and spewing out water so hot it should have killed everything for miles around. Instead, worms moved in and built cities. Now, these weren't normal worms. They were tube worms that figured out how to live next to underwater volcanoes by making friends with bacteria.
What kind of looks like
the
a
bacteria
feather?
would eat the poisonous chemicals coming out of the vents, and the worms would eat the bacteria. Everyone was happy except for anything that tried to live anywhere else on the sea floor, because it was basically a chemical wasteland. We know this happened because we keep finding fossilized worm tubes in ancient rocks that formed around these volcanic vents. Thousands of tubes all clustered together around what used to be black smokers shooting out 700-degree water. The worms had no eyes, no mouths, and no way to catch food on their own. They just sat there in their tubes, letting their bacterial roommates do all the work. In fact, they're doing the exact same setup in the exact same places, with the exact same species of bacteria. 400 million years later, and tube worms are still the only things tough enough to live right next to underwater lava geysers. They're really well.
Another useless fish, I guess. I mean, sorry, a worm. I mean, come on. One is just sucking onto the woman and living his whole life just as a parasite. Those ones are just exist, waiting for food to fly by. Kind of like, aren't jellyfishes just like that too? Like, they don't really move much. They don't really hunt much either. They're just waiting for something to come close to them. I'm not sure how jellyfish works. Why is there so many useless things in the ocean?
The wild part is that these vent sites don't last very long. The volcanoes shut off, the chemistry changes, and the whole community has to pack up and find a new vent somewhere else. But somehow, these worms have been playing this game of volcanic musical chairs for nearly 500 million years. Most creatures spend their time trying to avoid getting cooked alive. Tube worms spent 430 million years perfecting the art of living inside a natural pressure cooker and turning poison into dinner. And speaking of ancient survivors, some fish took hiding to ridiculous extremes. In 1938, a museum curator got a phone call about a weird fish that had been caught off the coast of South Africa. She went to look at it and immediately knew she was staring at something that was supposed to be extinct for 66 million years. The Coelacanth had been playing the ultimate game of hide and seek, while everyone else was dealing with asteroid impacts and ice ages and whatever other disasters were happening on the surface. Coelacanths just moved into some deep underwater caves and decided to sit this whole modern era thing out.
I told you, all of them are lazy.
Coelacanth fossils for decades, going all the way back to fish that lived 360 billion years ago. They figured these things died out with the dinosaurs. Turns out they just got really good at avoiding people.
That's how it
looks hanging out
like?
in caves 600 feet down, coming out at night to hunt, and basically living the exact same lifestyle their great times a million grandparents have been living since before trees existed. The fish that got caught in 1938 caused such a big deal that they put out a reward for anyone who could find another one. In fact, it took 14 years to find a second fish that had supposedly been extinct since the Cretaceous period. That's some next level hiding skills right there. And when they finally studied living coelacanths, they found out these fish hadn't bothered to evolve much of anything in all that time. Same weird fins, same weird skulls, and the same weird way of giving birth to live babies instead of laying eggs. So while everything else was evolving, adapting, and trying new things, coelacanths were in their caves going, nah, I'm good, I'll see you in a couple million years. But other ancient creatures took a different approach.
Sea lily is cute, but I don't think... Is there another fish that basically makes babies, like alive babies and not eggs? I'm pretty sure I heard it somewhere. Or maybe I watched something about this fish, but I remember the fish that was basically making live babies like mammals do, which is kind of creepy. How much do we have similar with this fish? Why does it make live babies instead of eggs or what fishes do, the little eggy thingies?
To survival in the oceans. Imagine walking through a forest where every single tree is actually an animal. Well, that's what the ancient sea floor looked like when sea lilies were running the show. These things grew 60 feet tall and swayed in the current with their feathery arms spread out to catch food floating by. They weren't lilies and they weren't plants. They were animals that just happened to look like underwater flowers, and they covered the ocean floor in dense forests that stretched for miles. Some of these underwater trees were taller than a 6-story building. All of them stuck to the seafloor with their roots and waving their arms around trying to catch dinner. The crazy part is how successful this strategy was. For hundreds of millions of years, being a giant underwater flower was apparently the way to go. Sea lily fossils are so common that entire...
That looks like the thing from Alien that was attaching itself to your face. And how big they were? What were they eating? Freaking whales? What? 6-story buildings? That's what he said? That's like huge. What were they eating? Dolphins? What? Other fishes? The whole fishes? Usually when you see like those kind of plants, like those worms or something, they usually eat like those little small thingies, right? Those, I don't know what would they have to eat to survive, because I don't believe they were just, surviving like the worms on those like particles or something. They were too big to survive on the particles, right? There's no way.
Limestone cliffs are made out of nothing but their broken stems and arms. Literally whole mountains of dead sea lily parts.
Ew.
Most of them got wiped out during the big extinction at the end of the Permian period, but a few species said, you know what, we're just gonna move deeper, and they kept doing their thing.
Oh my god, it's walking.
They didn't even know they were still...
Oh my god, it was walking by itself. Oh my god, it was literally that thing from Alien. Literally the thing from Alien. If I would see something like this crawling somewhere, I would immediately panic. It was moving. Did you see how it was moving? Awful, freaking awful. Do you think someone was ever trying to eat that? Because there's a lot of crazy stuff people are eating all over the globe. Do you think someone was trying to eat this? Do you think someone would be trying to eat this if they would find it? Because if it moved underwater to the deep, no way, wait a second. It still exists? I'm never walking into the ocean ever again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Still alive until the 1800s when someone finally dragged one up from the deep ocean. Today, there are still sea lilies down there, doing the exact same thing they've been doing for 300 billion years, standing around on the seafloor, waving their arms in the current, catching whatever floats by. They're not as tall as they used to be, and there aren't nearly as many of them, but they're still out there being living flowers on the bottom of the ocean.
But not as big. That's fine.
Now we're about to talk about my favorite prehistoric marine reptile, the Abyssosaurus.
Oh, why is it so long?
Means bottomless lizard, which is probably the most metal name any prehistoric reptile ever got. And unlike most dinosaur names that sound way cooler than the actual animal, this one earned it. This thing was a plesiosaur that looked at the deep ocean, decided that's where it wanted to live permanently. Not just visit for hunting trips, but full-time residency in the abyss. So it evolved the heaviest bones of any marine reptile ever found.
It's a giraffe.
Dense,
It's a
thick
water
bones
giraffe.
that worked as built-in weights to drag it down into the darkness. Most marine reptiles had lightweight bones to help them float and swim efficiently. Abyssosaurus went the opposite direction and basically turned its skeleton into a lead vest. It wanted to sink, and it wanted to stay sunk. This thing had lungs the size of barrels to hold enough air for extended deep dives. Then it would just drop like a rock into water so deep
it's
that
a
the
Loch
pressure
Ness
would crush a
monster.
human instantly. Down there in the total darkness, it would cruise just above the seafloor with those massive eyes scanning for anything dumb enough to be wandering around in the void. Small head, long neck, perfect for darting forward and grabbing squid or fish before they knew what hit them. And this wasn't just some weird experiment that lasted a few thousand years. Abyssosaurus was doing this for millions of years in the early Cretaceous. While other plesiosaurs were splashing around in shallow lagoons, this one was hanging out in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean, living a lifestyle that wouldn't be out of place in a horror movie. The name says it all. Bottomless lizard. It's also got like the coolest name of any dinosaur out there. It's a marine reptile, but it's got the similar naming structure as dinosaurs. It literally went to the bottom and then just said, "This is my home now." But further north, things
Do you
got
think it still
even weirder,
exists?
though.
Can you imagine? Like people, you know, the legend came from something. The Loch Ness monster, right? That looks just like Loch Ness monster. So do you think that someone one day saw like maybe a last Abyssosaurus ever, and he was like, "Oh my God, there is a monster in a Loch Ness." But isn't Loch Ness a lake? So that wouldn't make sense that it would be there. But you know what I mean? Like maybe he saw like a last one of those lizards, and he was like, "Oh my God, there's a monster," and it was like last one ever, and now there's a whole legend about it, but it was just Abyssosaurus. I mean, just Abyssosaurus. It's a freaking awful. If I would see this on the bottom floor, I would never be on the bottom floor. Let's start with that. But if I would see something like this trying to get air, which already would be probably creepy, because imagine this long neck just like pulling up the surface and sucking up the air and going back, I would definitely get a freaking heart attack.
Oceans. Ophthalmosaurus lived near the Arctic Circle.
Oh, that's another one.
145
Oh, this one's
million years
cuter.
ago, which meant it had to deal with months of total darkness during the polar winter. Most reptiles would have called that a deal breaker. Ophthalmosaurus saw it as a business opportunity. This plesiosaur had huge eyes that pointed straight up at the ceiling of the ocean. It spent its entire life staring at the surface, waiting for something to swim overhead so it could see the silhouette against whatever tiny bit of light was filtering down. When it found something up there, it would rise up from the bottom like some kind of underwater horror movie monster and grab whatever was unlucky enough to be swimming above it.
Another
But
Loch
here
Ness
is the
monster.
really weird part. Scientists have found rocks in this thing's stomach. Not fish bones, not squid beaks, but rocks. The name Ophthalmosaurus means eye of the north, which is pretty accurate considering it was basically a swimming eyeball that lived at the North Pole, but long before any of these monsters existed.
Was he actually freaking eating rocks? I mean, he doesn't look like he has a big brain in there. He has like a whole body, like a big body, and a small head on a stick. That's cute. The previous one, it has like a massive head and it looks super creepy. But this one looked like, you know, a little head on a stick and the big body. That's actually kinda cute. I like it. But why is he eating a freaking rocks? He has a brain like mine.
Something made a terrible decision.
What is that?
Trilobites had the best eyes in the ocean for 200 million years. They had compound eyes with perfect crystal lenses that could see better than most creatures alive
lights?
today. Then some of them looked at the deep ocean and decided to throw all of it away. They just gave up sight entirely. They now had smooth blank spaces where their amazing eyes used to be. No pupils, no lenses, nothing. They voluntarily became blind and moved into the darkest parts of the ocean, where they spent the next few 100 billion years feeling around in the mud for dead things to eat. This wasn't some gradual evolutionary process either. These things had perfectly good eyes, then their descendants just didn't. It was like something decided that seeing was overrated and crawling around blind on the seafloor was a better lifestyle choice. Obviously, there was an advantage to it. That is the whole point of evolution, where new
It was a new style. Yeah, he was right. Eyes were overrated. Who needs eyes? I mean, everything basically that was going down in the abyss was just losing eyes. Most of those creatures that he was showing either don't have eyes or like are probably very blind. That was the style of an abyss, okay? If you go into the abyss, just don't have eyes. Probably if you had eyes, they were laughing at you. So better to just fit in, okay? Better to just fit in. Remember that if you guys going down to the abyss, just pull your eyes out. You're going to be trendy.
Traits that emerge that are beneficial lead to the species surviving. So there was a reason. And apparently it worked out pretty well for them because blind trilobites were everywhere in the deep ocean. Thousands of them all feeling their way around the darkness with their antennae, bumping into each other, stepping on dead fish, living their best lives without any idea what anything actually looked like. In fact, they survived multiple mass extinctions this way. If you can't see the asteroid coming, there's no point in worrying about it. The last trilobites on Earth were probably the blind deep sea ones, still crawling around in the mud, still feeling for food with their antennae.
Kind of like a horseshoe crab?
They were the final members of one of the most successful animal groups in Earth's history. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. But today's deep ocean has its own version of unstoppable scavengers that look like creepy bugs. Giant isopods are what happens when you take a regular pill bug and feed it nothing but protein powder and steroids for 30 million years. These things are the size of footballs and can go 5 years without eating. 5 years. That is nuts. They also look creepy as hell. There is a giant isopod in captivity that didn't eat for half a decade and then died. Probably just to prove a point to humans that we don't deserve to keep them. They live on the deep ocean floor where food is so scarce that when something finally dies and sinks down to their level, it's like Christmas morning. Hundreds of these massive ocean bugs will detect the smell from miles away and come swarming over to the carcass like the world's most disturbing family reunion. Once they find a dead whale or fish, they'll gorge themselves until they are so stuffed they can barely move. Literally, it is like Christmas dinner. Then they will just sit there for months, maybe years, slowly digesting their meal while waiting for the next thing to die and fall from above. The weirdest part is how good they are at waiting. Most animals would starve to death in a few weeks without food.
Freaking aliens, man! It swims! Oh, goodness! It's swimming! I thought it just walking on the floor. I got surprised a little bit. Sorry for that. But it don't have to eat for 5 years. 5 years with no food? I don't trust it at all. I don't trust anything that like basically doesn't eat anything and survives. Like, this is crazy. Freaking crazy. I'm telling you, this is like a alien spy or something. Alien robo spy. What do you mean it doesn't have to eat?
Turned waiting into an art form.
Oh,
they'll sit perfectly still.
Look at it swimming!
Absolutely nothing. For
oh, what a freak!
Been alive.
Disgusting freak!
Encounter a predator, they just roll up into a ball and wait for it to go away. No running, no fighting, just full-on defensive mode until the threat gets bored and leaves. They're essentially the ocean's version of that friend who deals with problems by pretending they don't exist. 30 million years of evolution, and their survival strategy is eating once every few years and hiding from their problems. But even those survivors look normal compared to what came next.
What the hell is that?
Scientists found a fossil that looked like someone had bent a giant squid shell into a paperclip and decided that was a perfectly reasonable way to live for 200 years. That's Ophthalmosaurus, and yes, you heard that right. It lived for 200 years. This thing outlived entire dinosaurs known to live long, while shaped like something you play on. There are very few things on Earth that can live longer than 200 years. I can only name like the Greenland shark off the top of my head. Not a lot of things have ever lived that long. Most ammonites curled their shells into tight spirals because that's efficient and makes sense. Ophthalmosaurus looked at that design and said, actually, what if I just grew in a big U shape instead? Then it proceeded to float around in the ancient ocean for 2 centuries, looking like a 10-foot tall paperclip with tentacles. The shell shape was so weird that when paleontologists first found these fossils, they thought they were looking at multiple different animals that had somehow gotten stuck together. Nobody could believe that one creature would voluntarily grow itself into that shape and then live with the
why would you do that?
For 200 years. But apparently the paperclip lifestyle worked out great. Ophthalmosaurus would float vertically in the water with its head hanging down from the bottom of the U, just hovering there and grabbing whatever swam by. And they did this for a very long time. The same individual ammonite floating in the same spot, shaped like a paperclip, for longer than Canada has existed as a country. They counted the growth rings in the shell and found 200 of them, which means this thing was already ancient when it was still alive. Evolution spent millions of years perfecting the spiral shell design, then Ophthalmosaurus showed up and decided to reinvent the wheel as a pretzel. Yet even that weirdness pales next to the ocean's first aliens, Charnia.
Oh
565 million years ago, before there were fish, before there were any sharks, before there were basically any animals you would recognize, the deep ocean floor was covered in things that looked like they'd been designed by
Those
aliens
are just big
who had never
pee-pees.
seen Earth life before. Charnia was a 2-meter tall feather made of living tissue that had no mouth, no stomach, no eyes, and no way to move. Just stood there on the seafloor, swaying in the current, absorbing nutrients directly through its skin from the surrounding water.
Is it like a plant?
For tens of billions of years.
Isn't
No
it just a
predators
plant
existed
then?
yet, so nothing bothered it. No competition for food, so it didn't need to hunt. No reason to evolve quickly.
Well, it does
so
look
it stayed
pretty though.
exactly the same, doing exactly nothing that for longer than complex life.
Okay, if I would need to encounter something from the deep ocean, that would probably be it. I mean, it's kind of cute. It's not going to eat me. And it looks like a feathers. Feathers are nice. Birds have feathers. I like birds, okay? That can be super dangerous, right? I would definitely not want to meet up the paperclip monster. Because holy freak. Who in the right mind would evolve into having that kind of shape? What was it even for? Why was it helpful? I mean, usually when you evolve into something, you evolve into something that is like helping you out, you know, helping you with life. How is shape of a paperclip helping you with anything except of probably being bullied by a lot of freaking sea creatures?
Life has existed anywhere else. These things covered the ancient seafloor in vast fields, thousands of them, all identical, all motionless, all just standing there absorbing chemicals from seawater, while the rest of
What are
Earth
those
figured
freaking
out what
pancakes
evolution was supposed to be doing.
swimming
They had
around
fractal
them?
patterns built into their bodies that repeated at every level of magnification.
Oh.
Perfectly mathematical designs that wouldn't look out of place in a computer program.
It's a butt plug.
Except this
Oh
was
my
half
god.
a billion years before computers or math or anything that should have been able to create patterns that
It's a
precise even
prehistoric butt
existed.
plug.
When Charnia finally went extinct, it left no descendants. Nothing alive today is even remotely related to it. It was an evolutionary experiment that ran for 30 million years. Then it completely vanished, leaving only fossils to prove it ever existed. The deep ocean's first complex life forms were alien feathered creatures with fractal patterns that fed by standing perfectly still and absorbing nutrients from them. Honestly, there are probably millions more of animal species even weirder we don't even know about. Because that is the scary part about the prehistoric ancient ocean. There are so many species we've found, and yet there are so many we haven't. There are probably monsters that once lived down there that we would think were aliens of how crazy they are. What do you think is still down there today? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this. And if you want to watch another video of mine, you should watch the video on the screen now.
I definitely do not want to know what is down there, because I'm pretty sure there is something freaking hiding. Because if that one fish, they were talking about this one fish who was like hiding for a long time, so they found one and then they waited 14 years to find another one. I believe there must be something on the bottom of the deepest ocean. There is something there that is super creepy, probably, and still undiscovered. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know, because those are freaking me out. But thank you so much everybody for watching. Which one was your favorite prehistoric creature? Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. As always, remember that I stream every day except Fridays on my main channel. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye. Bye.